Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Good morning, everyone. This nice, semi-humid morning. Not my favorite weather. Okay, nice, humble group today. All right, so we'll be continuing our discussion on developing our full concentration for the access concentration piece that we are trying to achieve in our meditation practice. But today we'll be speaking a little bit more specifically on distractions and how to deal with them. So as we discussed briefly in our last class of how we shift from our meditation object to distractions that arise, and how our meditation object, which we are focusing on our breath, anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. So that is our full method. It's our method for our object of meditation that we are focusing and concentrating on is just our breath. I know last year when we had our classes, we discussed the different methods and techniques of meditation. We went through walking meditation, chanting meditation, mantra meditation, visualization. So all these different methods that we practice with. But this time around, we're going to be simply focusing just on our breath as our object of meditation. And so for last class, when we were discussing how to hold and maintain our object of meditation, we mentioned that that object of meditation should always be in your foreground, right? That is your main concentration point, is your breathing. And all the distractions are kind of in the background, right? And we discussed how those distractions, if we are not being mindful enough or concentrating enough, those background distractions will slowly push away that object of meditation, right? And so there's a constant shift back and forth with our object of meditation and distraction. And so as we develop and continue to increase our concentration awareness, or awareness to our object of meditation, those distractions as they arise, when they try to push out that object of meditation, if your concentration is strong enough, it won't allow that distraction to push it aside, right? And so when that is the case, this is continuous concentration, right? You're continuously concentrating on your object of meditation. And it's strong enough where it's not allowing those distractions to take hold or take over. And so even though we are fully concentrated on our breathing, our object of meditation, right, we still have those subtle distractions in the background, right? They're kind of wispy and they're kind of just hanging out, right? They're not strong enough to completely take over your meditation. They're not strong enough for it to take over to remove your breathing as an object of meditation altogether. But they're still there, right? They're subtle distractions. Versus if they were to take over completely your object of meditation, now it becomes a gross distraction, a real distraction, right? So our object now is to continue to develop that continuous concentration, so we don't have those distractions pushing it out. And we discuss almost every class the practice of labeling, right? So as those distractions arise, or you see potential distractions that could potentially take over your concentration, your awareness, then we simply just give it a label, right? So if we hear the door open, we just label it door or sound. Right? We hear the AC running, we can just say sound or AC, right? So whatever happens, whatever arises, whether you hear something, you see something, you smell something, or if you're just feeling pain, for instance, right? We're sitting on the floor. So sometimes our legs will cramp up, or our knees will lock up, or our feet fall asleep, right? All these are awarenesses, distractions that are arising. So instead of allowing it to take over, instead of entertaining them, right? So if the door open, we don't think, who's at the door? Why are they coming in 20 minutes late? Or whatever, I don't know. But we're not playing a game of guess who, right? We're simply acknowledging that something happened, we accept that it's already happened, and we just let it be, continue on. Because again, our mind is enemies with the present moment. Our minds are obsessed with time, obsessed with past, and obsessed with future. And so when we are trying to meditate and stay in the now, in the present, our mind is trying to fight that, right? Because it's the one thing that your mind cannot control, is just being present, right? It controls you. We think we control our own mind, but we don't, right? We're not the masters of our mind. If you were the master of your mind, then you would be able to stop thinking on command. Can you do that? Probably not, at least not for too long. So we are not the masters of our mind. So our mind are our masters. And so when we are trying to do something it doesn't want to do, which is be present and be focused and aware in the present moment, then it fights it. It starts to bring back memories of the past, regrets, anxieties, anger, or it causes anxieties of the future. What ifs, buts and ands, and et cetera, right? And so we're here to develop our mind, to train it, to allow ourselves to just be. Because as long as you're able to acknowledge, accept, and be aware and accept what arises, then it's easier for those distractions to simply let it be. Because these distractions are trying to take you away from your focus of your object of meditation, right? But if you're able to simply just acknowledge it and say, hey, I see you, you're right there, I know you're trying to distract me, right? It'll essentially scare it away. It'll leave your awareness much quicker. But sometimes there's those distractions that are pretty persistent, right? Sometimes emotions arise, in times of chaos in our own life, right? Or just a whole bunch of life situation happening. We have certain emotions that may be pretty persistent, and they just seem like they just don't want to go away. But again, that's still your mind trying to take over, right? It's trying to create false stories, right? Because that's essentially what happens when we're angry, right? If we're angry at someone, for instance, we're always thinking of what we can say in retaliation. We're thinking of how we can avenge ourselves, right? Or how we can do something to hurt them the way they hurt us, right? We're constantly thinking of these false ideas and stories. And so we have to be aware that that is happening, because if you're aware that these inaccurate situations are happening, then it's easier to train your mind to stop it from doing that in the first place, right? Because all these are it's fake storytelling, basically, right? What you're thinking of what you can do, what you could have said, what you think you could say or think you can do, all these are just false perceptions. These are false ideas. These aren't things that actually happened or probably will happen, right? They probably won't. There's imaginary things that come up, that arise because we want to revenge, right? But once we're able to just bear witness to what's arising in our mind, if we're able to just allow ourselves to see what's happening, what's arising, how we're feeling, and bring it into our bare awareness and acknowledging it and accepting it, then it'll naturally just go away on its own, right? Even those persistent things, if it's constantly staying and doesn't seem like it's going away, then you're just repeating the process over and over again. You're repeating or labeling it, right? It's instead of I am angry, right? Because you are not the emotion. You are not the feeling that's arising, right? That's outside of you. So instead of saying I'm angry or I'm pissed off or I'm aggravated, just instead replace that label with anger is arising or anger is here or just simply anger, right? Don't associate yourself with those emotions, because when we do that sometimes what typically also happens is we start judging the emotion. We start judging ourselves. Why am I angry? I shouldn't be angry, right? Or I should be angrier. So instead of falling through that rabbit hole, we simply just acknowledge anger is here, anger is arising, or just anger, right? Once we're able to acknowledge it and accept that it's there and be aware of it, it'll simply go away. Sometimes you have to repeat that over and over again if it's pretty persistent. But for the most part, once you bring that distraction or whatever is arising to your attention and say, hey, I see you, then it's easier for it to, like, okay, give up. You caught me, basically, right? Tag, you're right. So that's pretty much the main idea of distraction, of working with our distractions, is to simply bear witness to them as they arise, letting them know that they are there, that we know that they're there, and they will simply go away. If it's one of the most common ones, of course, is physical pain, right? Because we're sitting on the floor, maybe we're sitting cross-legged, maybe you're not used to sitting on the floor, maybe you just have bad bones, who knows? Whatever the reason is, almost 9 out of 10 times you'll probably feel some sort of discomfort sitting if you haven't been sitting for long enough. And we all know that sometimes, this is human nature, we exaggerate things quite often, right? We want to embellish what we think we know or what we think we heard, and we want to over-exaggerate. So our mind automatically does that. So sometimes when we're sitting and we feel pain, and it's just a slight discomfort, maybe in the foot or the knee, but your mind's like, oh my God, I'm dying. My knee is literally about to fall off. Right? It's causing you to over-exaggerate the pain, where it's just a simple discomfort. And so, for the most part, what you can do is allow that pain to be your object of meditation, right? So you're taking away your focus momentarily away from the breath to whatever area that is in pain, right? Whether it's your knee, your legs, your back, whatever it is. Allow that to be the object of meditation and just watch it, right? It's the same thing with distractions. Once the distraction is aware that you see it, that you're aware of it, then it'll most likely be like, okay, you got me. I'm gonna give up now. So the same thing with our pain. Because our minds are automatically over-exaggerating our discomfort. Once we let it know that we see it, we acknowledge it, and we know it's there, it's easier for it to, again, give up, just like our distractions. And then from there, you can go back to your object of meditation. Because not every discomfort that you feel is an opportunity to adjust yourself. Because, again, if you can recognize that it's an over-exaggeration pain, or if it's true excruciating pain, right? And you're able to differentiate that by allowing it to be your object of meditation. So once you pay a little bit more attention to it, you'll be able to see, is this really excruciating pain, or is it just my mind telling me that I feel like my leg's about to fall off, right? If it just feels like your mind's over-exaggerating, then, again, it'll kind of back off and be like, okay, I'll calm down. I'll stop exaggerating a little bit. And so if it's still minor discomfort, you want to work through it, right? I always joke around and say, just suck it up. Because a society that doesn't typically sit on the floors very often, right? So it's discomforting for us more than it is for someone who grew up sitting on ground. So, like training our body when we go to the gym, in meditation we're training our mind, but we're also training our body at the same time to allow the pain to be, right? Because even when you go to the gym and working out, you're literally tearing muscle, right? That's how you build muscle. Is the muscle is being torn, and new tissue and muscle is growing on top of it. That's how the muscles grow. So just like tearing your muscles, you have to tear apart your discomfort in meditation. And it'll eventually get better. It'll take some time, obviously, but eventually you'll be able to sit more comfortably without having the need to adjust often. But on the other hand, if it is completely excruciating and you just cannot deal, then make the mental note or the mindful note that you need to adjust, right? So again, you're labeling. So you just label moving or adjusting, right? Or correcting. And just make slight mindful movements to adjust yourself. And for the most part, it also depends on your posture. So I started bringing out these red cushions because they're thicker, right? We used to always only have the brown ones, and they're paper thin. They're terrible to sit for meditation. So I had to bring out these red cushions because they're thicker and you stay higher off the ground, which is an important aspect here, because if you are sitting on the floor cross-legged, I always recommend at least half lotus. Because if you just sit regular cross-legged, then both your ankles are on the floor, and that's creating pressure on your feet, right? So your feet are gonna fall asleep faster, and you're gonna be more discomfort. You're gonna feel more discomfort faster. So if you at least sit half lotus and raise one of those ankles on top of your lap, then you're releasing a little bit of pressure. If you're able to put both feet on top in full lotus, then you have no pressure on your ankles, right? And so you're sitting at this triangular foundation that's very stable and very strong, and it's easier to maintain. So I always recommend at least half lotus, because you at least have half of normal pressure off the ground. But even if you don't sit half lotus, the point is, if you're able to sit higher off the ground where your hips are pretty much at the level of your knees, right, you create that very stable position. And it's easier to sit, and you have more blood flow. Because when you're sitting regularly, you're constricting blood flow, and that's why your feet and legs fall asleep. But if you're able to sit higher, and there's more blood flow, more open space, and less areas of pressure, then your feet or legs will less likely fall asleep. But that's just dependent on how you want to sit. Or you can sit on the chair. You can sit on, or if you want to sit on the table, that's okay too, right? Position is important. Meditation is about taming the mind, not taming the body. So as long as your body is in a comfortable enough position, then you're perfectly fine. So that's why in Buddhism there's sitting meditation, walking meditation, sitting and walking meditation, and no sitting and no walking meditation, right? So, which literally just means it doesn't matter how you're meditating. Whether you're sitting, you're standing, you're walking, you're sleeping, you're doing a handstand, you're doing cartwheels, it doesn't matter how you're meditating. The position doesn't matter. It's the state of mind that matters. So you can be doing cartwheels outside and still focus on the breathing, and that's still meditation. I wouldn't recommend it, but it is a possibility. And I forgot to mention earlier my announcements, but we'll be having a retreat June 25th. It'll be an 8 precepts retreat. So unlike our meditation retreat in the winter, our meditation retreats are meditation heavy and very little to no chanting. Whereas the 8 precepts retreat is more chanting and less meditation, but there's still meditation in there. But that's going to be June 25th. So if you plan to attend, please register on our website since we have limited space. But my point is, as we go through that retreat and we are doing all the chanting, because in our tradition, chanting is also a form of meditation. Right? Meditation doesn't just mean sitting in silence, right? Because what is meditation? Meditation is the practice of concentrating on one thing, right? Samatha, right, is one pointedness, or samadhi is one pointedness concentration. So in meditate, and when we are chanting, we're doing the same thing. Our object of meditation is what we are chanting, right? We're only focused on the chanting, and so that's also a form of meditation. So when we are going through that retreat and we're doing all the chanting, you'll notice, and hopefully you'll notice and recognize that you have very little to no distraction whatsoever, because you're completely immersed in the chanting. And it's even easier when we're in a group chant, right? Because you're listening to all the voices, you're listening to the instruments, you're listening to your own voice, and you're concentrating on the words, and you are fully immersed in the chant. And it's very good feeling, kind of good energy to be in. And so for today, we're also doing our half chanting, half meditation as well. So if you've been here before and you've done it, it's where we chant slowly and kind of speed it up as we sit, after we sit. And so that meditation is also very helpful, because again, as we speed up, right, you're going to be completely focused on chanting and keeping up with the speed, right? And so because you're fully immersed in trying to say, in trying to keep up, you'll notice that your distractions have no room to distract you, because you're too focused on the chant, right? And so that's the beauty of chanting, or in mantra meditation, right? Even in any mantra meditation we do. And again, a mantra meditation can be literally anything. A mantra isn't necessarily anything spiritual or religious, right? It's simply a word or a phrase that you are holding as your object of meditation, right? So in the temple, for instance, we'll either do Om Mani Padme Hum, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, or today we'll doing Amitabha, or you can just say car, house, plane, pencil, right? It doesn't matter what the word is, right? It doesn't have to be spiritual or anything in a sense. But it's something that gives you something to focus on, right? So, but today we'll be doing Amitabha. So Amitabha, 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 and then we sit, speed it up until we get to a very speedy pace. We slow down a little bit, and then stop, and then we'll just sit and meditate in silence. And I encourage everyone to participate in trying to chant out loud, because when we stop, you'll see that your body has this really nice vibration to it. And it's very calming. There's like a hum in the body. And you'll see that you're able to stay focused and be more mindful so much easier than if we were not to do the chant. But after we stop, because as we're doing the meditation in the beginning and chanting, that is your object of meditation, right? Is the chant, it's the word, Amitabha. But when we stop, then your object of meditation shifts to back to your breathing, right? And you notice, even though we've been chanting very fast, when you stop chanting, you'll notice that your breath is actually very, very light. It's very shallow. Versus, right, like sometimes when we work out, when we run and we stop, our breathing's very heavy, right? It's very coarse because we're trying to catch our breath. But in this case, when you stop, you'll notice that your breath is actually very shallow. It's very light. And so you just, again, you're switching your awareness from the chant to the breathing. And again, you'll notice your breathing. Whether you want to count your breath, or if you just want to follow the sensations of the breathing as you're breathing, right? Traditionally, you'll bring awareness to the tip of your nose, or kind of just in this area, right? To feel the breath, the air as it enters and exits the nostrils, right? So that's your area of focus. Or as you're breathing, just notice where in the body you feel the strongest sensation of breathing, right? Whether it's in the throat, or it's in the lungs, or at the tip of the nose, wherever it may be. For me, it's always in the chest area. That's where I can feel, which probably for most people too, is in the chest area. So use that area as your object meditation, as you're breathing to focus on. And then just go with it until we're done with the meditation. And again, if distractions arise, simply acknowledge, allow, and accept. Give it that label. Try to not entertain the thought. Try not to think of what the thought's trying to make you think of, right? It's almost lunchtime, so you may have a distraction or a thought arise about food, right? So then you're gonna think, oh, what do I want to eat? Where do I want to go after this? Do I want to cook? Do I want to be lazy and get something to take out, or pick something up? Whatever it may be, right? Instead of entertaining that thought and allowing it to take over, simply food or hunger, right? Give it that label. Acknowledge that it's there. Accept that it's a distraction, and then just allow it to be. Accept it. Let it go. And let's continue in that same process as we go through. Distractions arise, you hear something, you feel something, emotion, whatever, label it, and go back to your object of meditation. Because again, you're training your mind to not let it take over when those distractions arise. So as we go through the process and as we develop our meditation and our practice, that's going to be, our mind will start to recognize that distractions are not going to take us over, right? Our mind will recognize that when you're in meditation for a reason, right? And so just like training our body, when we're working out, we have to train our mind. And slowly, it'll start to lessen with the distractions. Or at least the distractions won't be so big, it'll take over your foreground, right, your object, right? It'll try to push it out of view, but as we develop that concentration will be very stable, and it won't be pushed out of sight. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking. What questions do we have? Concerns? Emotional outbursts? Amitabha is a name of the Buddha. So the statue up here is Amitabha Buddha, which is to attendants. So it's easy to chant because it's Amitabha, 4 syllables. So it's easier to chant when we're chanting, especially when we're going quickly, when we sit down and start speeding up the chant. Amitabha is just easy to recite. Traditionally, we would chant Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, right, homage to Shakyamuni Buddha, but that's too long. We do chant that when we do formal walking meditation, like we will do in the retreat. But when we're doing mantra meditation or chanting meditation, typically we choose something short and simple. Usually it's either Om Mani Padme Hum or Amitabha or just Shakyamuni. It can be anything. But we use the name of the Buddha or Bodhisattva here because it has more than one use. So we use or we chant to the Buddhas or Bodhisattvas not to pray to them right? Because they don't care about our prayers. They're not here to bless us or to give us fortune and fame, right? So when we chant the sutras or chant the invocations of the Buddhas or Bodhisattvas, we are not chanting to them or for them. We are chanting for ourselves. So what we do, one piece of chanting or prayer in Buddhism is to develop the characteristics of that Buddha or the Bodhisattva, right? So the Buddha, Shakyamuni, right, his characteristics are of enlightenment, of compassion, loving kindness, of freedom of mind. And so when we chant his name or pray or chant the sutras, we are trying to develop those characteristics within ourselves, right? Or Avalokiteshvara, right, the statue behind me, she is the Bodhisattva of compassion. And so when we chant their name, we are developing and remind ourselves to develop compassion, to develop loving kindness, to develop an open mind to accept things as they are, right? So same thing with Amitabha. So in this case, our object isn't to develop the characteristics, but to develop a object meditation, one pointedness object to hold our concentration. Usually, for myself personally, when I do this type of meditation, the chanting meditation of Amitabha, once I sit, I also visualize him as well, right? And that adds an extra layer of concentration for you, right? Because even though we're chanting Amitabha, 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 and we're going pretty quickly eventually, if you're not concentrated enough, you may still have some room where distractions can still hinder, right? Even though you're semi-focused, your mind is trying to multitask at the same time, right? And so you can be chanting Amitabha, 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 but at the same time you're thinking about lunch, or you're thinking about what to do tomorrow, right? And so if you're able to add an extra layer of concentration on top of that, like visualization, now you have two guards of your mind, right? And so you're less likely to allow distractions to arise. So I do visualization as well. It's a little bit more difficult because we typically can't hold visualizations for more than a few seconds, but just those few seconds is enough, right? Because you bring it back, even though the visualization may disappear, as long as you bring it back, right, and hold that with your object of meditation chanting, then it's a strong practice, right? But even if you haven't done the chanting meditation with us before, if it's your first time, or if your first few times, you'll still notice the difference of how less distractions are arising versus just sitting silently in meditation, right? So if you've sat silently in meditation, you already know how your mind is. You already know how much distraction arises. You already know what happens in your mind, right? So now when we do this, you're able to compare the difference, whether it's better or worse, or the same, or whatever it may be, right? So that's why in the past I've given you like a dozen different methods and techniques, because one can work better for you than another method for me, right? My preferred method may not work for you, right? So I've given you different methods and techniques so you can experiment with them and see which one is going to work for you better or best. That way you can continue using that same method until you no longer need it. Okay, that was off topic. Any other questions?
When you're saying Amitabha in your breathing, is there certain, like the first syllable, you take a deep breath in, how do you breath in flow? Chanting, or it's just breath?
Nothing like that when we're sitting. So when we are walking, I'll have the small little drum, and So you typically want to take a step for each syllable. So Amitabha. So you follow the rhythm of the syllable for your walking. So when we're doing walking or chanting meditation, again, your breathing isn't the object of meditation, so it doesn't matter how you breathe. You only be aware of your breathing once you've dropped your object of meditation. So when we sit and we're speeding up the chanting is still your object of meditation. But once we stop, now your object of meditation shifts from the chanting to your breathing. Now you're able to watch your breath. But usually, even if we're doing walking meditation, silent walking meditation, your object of meditation shifts from breathing to the sensations of the feet. So as you walk, you're feeling how you're feeling the sensations of the feet as you lift your feet, as you shift it and bring it back down, right? You're just feeling how the feet feels as you walk, right? You can add breathing to it, right, as another layer of awareness or concentration. But for the most part, our object of meditation in walking is your feet, the sensations of the feet. And so even now when we do the walking and even when we sit first, your object is simply Amitabha. And then once we stop, then you shift back to your breathing. Make sense? Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Well, if there are no questions, then we will rise. Again, we'll be chanting Amitabha, Amitabha, Amitabha. And then once we sit, we'll speed it up, and then we will slow down until we come to a stop, and then we will sit for meditation for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then if everyone wants to just make a line behind Leon. Amitabha, Amitabha. Amitabha, 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 Taba, Amitabha, 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 Amitabha. Amitabha Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Welcome back, everyone. How was your meditation? Did you notice the difference between this and our regular silent meditation? Me too. I feel like I'm transcending when I do this.
It helps with the easy into it. Like it's almost, it's effortless. It helps feel effortless.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely more or less forced concentration, which is another hindrance.
I think it's interesting that we chanted Amitabha, and so there's three syllables that are very much alike. So what happens, I notice if I'm not staying connected with the chant, the syllables start getting out of order or something, and I realize I was just saying
Random words, yeah.
But it's better than you're sitting silently and get distracted. Sometimes you go off for quite a ways before you kind of realize that you're not there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't go as fast as I would normally do because some of you are new and never done this with us before, so I went as fast. I went as fast as I thought people would be able to keep up. But usually, especially during a retreat, for instance, we would go fast enough where the syllables just merge into just pure sound. Like there's no distinction at that point. It's just because you're going so fast. That's kind of the goal eventually for you. But yeah. Anything after it, if you do participate and actually chant out loud, and you'll notice that nice buzz in the body after we stop. It's very calming. It's like the buzz of a cat's purr, right? They say cats purring on you is almost healing. So I feel like this is the same thing.
Vibrations just go out through your whole body.
Yeah, and I feel like you're more calm, more aware, and better focused. Because at this point, if you did chant out loud and do that your mind was working so hard to be aware and to stay focused and to keep up, that once you stop, your mind's too exhausted to even try to distract you. You're like, okay, I'm tired right now, so I'm just gonna chill while you chill and let your mind develop. So I think this is a very beneficial practice for anybody, especially if you're new to meditation or at least trying to create a disciplined practice. Because I always emphasize that meditation should be a very disciplined practice, right? We can't come to meditation as a hobby. If you do, then you're wasting everyone's time. Because there are some fringe benefits to meditation, right? The random byproducts of meditation, which, like ease up stress and anxiety and other mental faculties. But from the Buddhist perspective, from the Buddhist practice, that's a nice to have. It's not a must have, right? Our object of meditation in Buddhism is to develop strong enough concentration so that we can use that concentration for the second part of meditation, which is contemplation, right? There's samatha and vipassana. So samatha is the calming, concentrated state of mind. And you need that concentrated state of mind in order to practice vipassana, or insight meditation, right? Contemplation. And so that's the object, that's the goal of our practice, Buddhist meditation. But we are even out there in the world, they use mindfulness practices and mindfulness meditations as a therapeutic process which is okay, right? You can definitely benefit from that. But those benefits that you would get from that type of meditation already naturally comes with our practice, right? That's just not the focus that we're running after. And so sometimes I scare people off when I tell them I'm not here to be your therapist. If you're here to try to ease your anxiety, specifically to ease your anxiety or depression or whatever other else, I can't help you with that. I could if I wanted to, but that's not my job.
That almost sounds, as someone who contemplates on their productivity a lot, that almost sounds like a practice of learning how to do more with less. And that's something that is a great training.
Right. We definitely are retraining our brain, our mind in meditation. Because you're almost doing, well, not almost, you are doing something it doesn't want to do, which is be concentrated, right? Be focused on the one object. And so by doing that, because eventually what we're trying to do also is to watch our mind. We have to be friends with our mind. You have to see how our mind works, right? And that's part of the contemplation piece of our meditation is what arises in your mind? How does it arise? Where is it coming from? Why is it there? Why does it make you feel this way? Why does it do anything else to you, right? The question here is why? And by doing that, right, you start to figure out what is causing that anxiety? What is causing that distress, right? And that's where those fringe benefits come in, right? Because once you are aware or are able to accept what is causing you suffering in life, what's causing you distress, what's causing you anxiety, now you have something tangible to work with. Now you know exactly what's causing this anxiety, and you can do something about it, right? Whether you do something about it or not is your job, is up to you, right? Because if you do something about it, and you're able to release part of whatever is causing anxiety or get rid of it altogether, and now that's one less thing that's distracting you in meditation. That's one less thing that's a distress in your everyday life, right? So it's gonna help you outside of meditation because now it's no longer a hindrance in your daily life, right? The anxiety, that one piece of anxiety is now gone. So now your everyday life is a little bit simpler too, right? So it's gonna affect you, but again, those are just the good side effects of our meditation. But I can't teach you how to specifically get rid of those anxieties because they're your anxieties, they're not my anxieties, right? So because it's such a personal level, I can give you a general idea of what to do with them, but ultimately you're the decision maker in what you do about it, right? Same thing with our practice. I can't force you to meditate every day and become a master of meditation. It's up to you. If you truly want to benefit from it, if you truly want to benefit from the fruits that arise from meditation, then you have to put in the effort. You have to put in the work. I always stress, it doesn't matter, it's not about quantity in meditation, right? We meditate, in our classes, we meditate 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes max, right? But if you're sitting here for 30 minutes, completely distracted the whole time, completely thinking about the outside world, then you've wasted 30 minutes of your life. But if you practice correctly, then you can meditate for 5 minutes and have 5 very good minutes of meditation versus 30 minutes of wasted meditation, right? So it's really about the quality here. So if you're able to at least apply 5 minutes of good meditation every day and then work your way up from there, perfectly fine. Meditate for 5 minutes. Meditate for 10 minutes, anytime you can. But your mind, again, is muscle. It's muscle memory. You have to reprogram it and let it say, hey, this is time for meditation. I'm going to meditate this time every day, right? And it's good to have a scheduled practice like that. Like so when you wake up, if you have to wake up 10, 15 minutes early to do meditation, do it. If you have to take a 10, 15 minute longer lunch, do it, right? Just set a time, set a goal that you need to meditate. And as you work through that, you'll see that meditation will become easier. You'll notice that your mind's less distressed, right? You're more at peace, you know what to do, you are reacting correctly to situations, right? And that's part of the practice is to, as we watch our mind and see how we feel when things arise or happen, right? If we're in the middle of an argument or a discussion, a heated discussion, whatever it may be, right? We're very reactionary beings. We react before we think. But if we practice mindfulness and be aware of how our mind works and what it's going through, then we can contemplate the situation before we react negatively, potentially, right? So we can stop ourselves from thinking bad things, we can then stop ourselves from saying bad things, and then stop ourselves from doing bad things, and react accordingly. Okay, any other questions, concerns, emotional outbursts?
What about like guided meditation and like apps and stuff? Sort of like help?
Guided meditation is helpful. I don't do it because it's not helpful for me. I would do a guided meditation. The only issue that comes with guided meditation is it moves at a very specific pace. And not everyone's meditation pace is the same, right? So if it takes you 5 minutes to get concentrated in the zone, it may take someone else 10, 15 minutes to get concentrated in the zone. So with guided meditation, you're moving at the pace of the guide, right? In this case, me. But if I get to a point in that guided meditation where you're still not ready for that point, then you're not going to benefit. There's no benefit to you, right? And so I may move too slow or too quickly for your development, right? So I may hinder your development and may cause you to be discouraged because you're like, oh, I'm not at that point, it's not working for me. Maybe this whole thing is not working for me, and you completely stop, right? And so a guided can be helpful if it's helpful only for you. So, yes.
I think that might be like with many teachings is that can maybe help in the beginning, and then as you get stronger, then you can say, well, I don't need a guide.
Right.
But that, like you're saying, that's your own personal view. It's your own experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think we did a guided meditation like once ever, and nobody was a fan, so I stopped doing it.
It can be helpful, I think, in the beginning if you just need prompts on, okay, remember to keep your back straight, and just little external reminders that are committed. I think the idea is that eventually you okay, I got this, and then you just take it on your own. So, because I think the other danger is you might become dependent on that habit, and you might say, well, I can't get in my zone unless I hear somebody's voice. But it's like tools, I think, any kind of tools, right? I think if it's helpful, then it's a good thing.
Yeah, I definitely think it's helpful maybe in the beginning when you're starting out your meditation practice, because most people may come into meditation and you're like, I just don't know what to do, right? And there's a lot of things that you can do. There's different techniques, there's different methods, and every teacher emphasizes different things, right? In the past, I emphasized all the different methods that I taught you, right? We went over like 10 different methods, right? To tell you, hey, there's not one right way to meditate. There's several ways to meditate. Here's all the different methods for you. Pick what works for you best, right? So for me, that was my form of guided meditation. Do what works for you, and then use that for your meditation. But to Leon's point, if you're starting out and you need that guidance of what to do, because one good thing about guided meditation is, well, depending on the actual how it's being presented, but most beginner guided meditations also have those little reminders to where they're like, hey, check your posture, check your breathing, check your vital signs, I don't know. But it helps you check, right? Keep in check of things. One of the type of guided meditation I used many years ago early on was not a voice guided, but a bell guided. So every minute or a few minutes, a bell would ring, and I used that indication to check, to do a body scan. Am I sitting upright? Are my hands where they should be? Is my breathing how it should be? Am I aware of what I'm supposed to be concentrating on, right? So it's a little reminder to check yourself. And I think that is better to use than an actual full guided, unless you need the full guided to help you get into the practice. Make sense?
Yeah, I've done that before where I started with the guided and slowly tapered off of it.
Yeah, because eventually you don't need it. Like Leon said, it's a tool, right? So like when you're building something, you need all the tools to build it, but once you're done building it, you no longer need the tools, right? Because you already have what you need. So meditation and the methods and techniques of meditation are the exact same thing. Eventually you no longer need it. You no longer need it. And same thing with our chanting meditation, right? Because it's like a forced, concentrated object for you, right? And you use it to help you to stay focused. But eventually you won't need to do that either, because your mind is at this point trained enough where you don't need this verbalism of chanting meditation to get into the zone. And it'll be easier and quicker. For most people, it takes maybe 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to get into the zone of meditation, right? To allow all the distractions to come and go. Eventually that time will shorten. For me, it takes 4 to 7 minutes.
So is that what you recommend? Is it lately I've been having trouble with calming my thoughts a lot recently? And so after 5 minutes, I was I'll try this later. Did you just recommend sitting for longer and trying to push it past that?
Are you labeling? Probably not labeling. You're not labeling, because you're entertaining the thoughts at that point. If your mind is scattered with all these thoughts, then you're allowing it to do that. So if you're able to label what's happening and acknowledge it's there, because your mind's literally trying to get your attention, is what it's doing, right? It's like a crying baby. It's crying because it needs attention. So your mind is the same thing. It's giving you all these distractions. It's distressing you because it needs your attention. But once you hold the baby and be like, hey, I'm here, chill out, it'll stop crying, right? So it's the same thing in our mind. Once we hold and label and accept that it's there and be aware of it, then it'll naturally calm itself. But you have to put in the effort to make those labels, to know, to accept, and to acknowledge that they are there. And then your mind, because you're training your mind, so eventually your mind will be like, okay, I get it. I need to start calming down. It's not going to happen overnight, right? Thinking is a natural human habit, right? It's millions of years of that same habit. So it's not going to stop as quickly as we hope it will be. Even now, I've been meditating for 18 years, and I still get distracted often. But I know what to do with those distractions. I know how to handle them, right? And that's part of the practice, is knowing what to do when it happens. Because just knowing will allow it to calm itself. Sound good? Just label, and you'll see difference. Because another thing about labeling is, again, like we mentioned before, it also creates a trend chart, right? So if you're labeling anger or anxiety or hatred or whatever it is, right? You're creating a bucket of all these labels. And once you have a bucket, then you know how your mind works, where your mind goes, how you feel about certain things or people or places, whatever it is, right? And so you're learning how your mind is. You're learning all the little intricate things in the mind by creating this chart of labels. And so if a label of annoyance is pretty full because of a certain person, now you know, okay, this person's clearly causing me so much distress. What can you do about it, right? You can either distance yourself from them, you can stop interacting with them altogether, or you can have a conversation with them, whatever it is, right? But at least now you have something that you know the cause for or of, and you can do something about it. And once you do something about it, as we mentioned earlier, and it's gone, then that is no longer a piece of the bucket. You can take that out of the bucket until eventually your bucket is empty. And then you have nothing to distract you. It's like lifetimes of practice. it's possible. It's possible to get from a full bucket to a few droplets in your lifetime. But you have to put in the effort. You can't just put in the effort when you sit to meditate once a week. It has to be a constant daily practice. And it becomes easier, it becomes more habitual, it becomes more automatic, right? So if you practice mindfulness often, then mindfulness is part of your life without you having to remind yourself to be mindful. Like for monks and nuns, we have 52 gathas, like little mantras, little phrases that we say for the different things we do. So when we wake up, we say gatha. When we put on a robe, we have a gatha. When we wash our hands, we have a gatha. When we're cooking, cleaning, sweeping, lighting incense, bowing, literally any activity we do, we have a little gatha mantra to remind us to be mindful of what we're doing, right? So if you're able to do that for anything, it just becomes automatic. You automatically become mindful of how you walk, where you walk, what you're stepping on, right? That way you can avoid stepping on animals or little insects, right? We typically don't care of what we step on and kill, unfortunately. But if you're mindful of how you walk, you can avoid destroying a life, right? If you're mindful of how you speak, you can be mindful of and avoid hurting someone's feelings or the reputation or whatever it may be, right? So if you're mindful of things you do, then you're able to reject any unwholesome activities and replace them with wholesome ones. And you will become a better person, hopefully. Unless you're just terrible, and it takes some time. Make sense? All right, so I also want to announce that next Saturday is our day of mindful working, our volunteer day. So I expect everyone to be here at 9 a.m. Next Saturday, the 30th. 9 a.m. we'll have, of course, lunch as usual. We are prepping for our Vesak celebration the following Sunday. Sunday, May 8th is Vesak, our Buddha's birthday, our holiest day of the year in Buddhism. So we'll have a big celebration for that. Everyone's invited to. That's Sunday, 10 a.m. for Vesak. And then our retreat, our precepts retreat is June 25th, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So it's a full day retreat. You do have to register for that since we have unlimited space. I think that's all that's going on in the near future.
Tuesday will be our first Buddhism 101.
Correct. Our Buddhism 101 class is finally starting up again May 3rd. So it's every first and third Tuesday at 6:30. It'll be here in the back room. 6:30, first and third Tuesday. And then we only have 2 more classes of meditation. So next month, May, whatever 4th Saturday of May is our last meditation class until our retreat, June 25th. And then we'll be off for July. I think for August. I'll have to check our calendar. And then we'll come back for sure by September, October, November, and then December we'll have our winter retreat, meditation retreat. Okay. Alrighty, well, I hope to see everyone on Saturday. And thank you. Namo Shakti Mani Buddha.